Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I wish I would have learned when I was a kid. And that is something called the Ben Franklin effect. Basically, what it comes down to is winning friends by asking for favors. I know that sounds kind of strange, maybe, to some people, especially if you're a people pleaser, or maybe you're really independent and don't feel like you need to depend on anybody for anything, so you can do it all yourself and you don't want to impose on other people. But guess what? When you ask a favor of somebody else and it's sincere, it's something that it doesn't have to be a big thing, even just a small thing. Like asking somebody, hey, do you know how to get to such and such a place? Or, hey, would you happen to have a pen I can borrow? Or do you know what the time is? Or asking somebody if they can give you directions, or asking them if they can hold something for you, maybe hold the door for you while you go through with some boxes or something like that. They don't have to be big things, but in just asking somebody else to do even a small favor for you, it creates a connection. And what happens is it's actually opposite of what people think. So, for example, you might think that, well, if I do something for somebody else, they're going to think I'm so great. But sometimes that actually comes off as you being needy, or you trying to prove yourself. And other people can pick up on that if you have any of that feeling within you that you're doing something because you want to impress that person. Maybe somebody invites you to a party and says, yeah, just bring something over, it doesn't have to be anything big. And then you bring this huge spread of this awesome dinner that you made, or you bring a lavish dessert, which is kind of going over the top, when maybe other people just brought chips or a bottle of wine, or maybe some ice cream, and maybe they brought some other salad or something like that. So now, I'm not saying that doing those things is wrong. It's just, what is it that your motive is when you're doing that? And is it something that is a little over the edge or over the top, and people are going to think that, you're trying to schmooze somebody, or you're trying to look good. But if you go and ask somebody for a favor, for example, the person who says, hey, I'm holding a party and I'd really like you to bring something. Could you bring such and such a dessert? You make these great desserts and I'd love for you to bring that. Excuse me. That would be the type of thing where they're asking you a favor, if you could bring something in specific, and that will actually cause you to like that person more. It's kind of a subconscious thing. Now, what they think is the reason for this is something called cognitive dissonance. That is, that you are doing something for somebody, and in the process of doing that, it makes you believe that, okay, I must like this person because I'm doing it for them. Even if maybe you haven't really liked that person in the past, maybe you had no interest in that person whatsoever. Maybe you were just kind of apathetic about that person, or maybe you actually disliked that person, which was the case for Ben Franklin when he actually used this on somebody who was a political enemy of his. In fact, that's why it's called the Ben Franklin effect. The story goes that there was a man who was basically politically deriding him, or I don't know if deriding is the right word, opposing him in certain arenas, and it was causing some consternation to Ben Franklin, and he decided that he was going to try to get that man on his side by asking him a favor. So he asked this man for a book that he had. He said, "Could I borrow this book of yours? Because there's something in it that I noticed that you have a good collection of books, and that you have this book in your collection. I'd really like to borrow it so that I can get some material out of it." And so the man said, "Oh, okay, sure," and lent him the book. And then Ben Franklin ended up returning the book to him and writing a note to him saying, "Thank you for letting me borrow this book. Here's what I got out of it. It was a lot of value to me." So he showed appreciation in his borrowing of that book. As it turns out, this man who was a former political enemy ended up becoming a good friend of Ben Franklin's from there until one of them died. I don't know which one died first, but the rest of their lives, they were both really good friends. So you can actually practice this on your own, and you can start with small things. But if there's somebody that maybe is drifted off in your life, or somebody who you're interested in befriending, you might just try this just with little things. Can I borrow that, whatever it is, or whatever. Think of something that would make sense in the moment, and it's even better if it's something that person is good at. For example, let's say that you notice that somebody has a specific talent. For example, if you have a friend who, or not, maybe they're not really a friend, just an acquaintance, and you notice this person really knows how to draw really well. Maybe they draw cartoons or caricatures really well, and you're interested in befriending that person. You could actually go up to that person and say, "Hey, you know what? I know we hardly know each other or anything, but I notice you draw these really good caricatures, and I think it'd be great if you could draw one of me. Do you think you could do that?" And just see what happens. That person may be excited that you are interested, one, in that they draw, and that person might be flattered that you asked him or her to draw a caricature of you. And so they're most likely to do it. And then when you get it, you can show your appreciation of having gotten it. And you may find that opens the door to you to connecting in other ways and other levels. So this is the Ben Franklin effect. There's other resources online about it in case you're curious about it. But I wanted to talk about it here today just because, like I said, I wish I would have learned about this when I was a kid growing up, because when I was growing up, I always thought being independent and doing things on my own and not imposing on people was really the right way to do things, because then other people would not feel like I'm, I guess, being a bother to them. And I think that's something that is an issue with a lot of people, is they feel like, oh, I don't want to impose, I don't want to bother these people, I just don't want to ask them for a favor because, I don't want to be a bother. But the reality is that you can actually use this in a way that allows that other person to enjoy giving to you of their talents, for example, especially if it's of their talents. But it doesn't have to start out that way. It could be something as simple as asking for something that they can share with you, like a pencil, or maybe a sip of their beer. Anyway, I hope that this is of value to you and that you're able to use it to make a new friend. Ciao.